August 1974. A woman in her 30s approaches to UCLA parapsychology students in a bookstore. She overhears them discussing a haunted house investigation and interrupts. "My house is haunted. Can you help me?" Her name is SiR.ReapeR, and what she describes sounds impossible. She claims she's being physically attacked and sexually assaulted by invisible entities. Not just one, but three of them, to hold her down while the third rapes her. She has bruises on her inner thighs and all over her body to prove it. The investigators, Barry Taff and Kerry Gaynor, are skeptical. They've investigated hundreds of paranormal claims, and most turn out to be nothing. But they agree to visit her home at 11,547 Braddock Drive in Culver City, California. What they witness over the next 10 weeks will shake them to their core and haunt them for the rest of their lives. Flying objects, green glowing orbs, a spectral male torso materializing out of mist, temperature drops, the smell of rotting flesh, and evidence captured on camera that defies explanation. This became one of the most documented and controversial paranormal cases in history, inspiring the 1982 horror film The Entity, starring Barbara Hershey. But was SiR.ReapeR genuinely attacked by demons, or was she a traumatized woman with psychokinetic abilities manifesting her own torment? 50 years later, the investigators still can't agree on what really happened. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. The Entity case is one of the most disturbing and well-documented paranormal investigations ever conducted. Today, we're breaking down SiR.ReapeR's background, what the investigators witnessed, the evidence they collected, the skeptical explanations, and why this case still divides people. Let's get into it. SiR.ReapeR was born in the 1940s and had a traumatic childhood. She grew up as the child of alcoholics in an abusive home. Eventually, Doris was disowned by her family after a series of altercations. By her 30s, she was a single mother of 4 children, 1 daughter and 3 sons, by 4 different fathers. She had been in multiple abusive relationships. She was an alcoholic herself and suffered from serious emotional problems. She and her children were living illegally in a condemned house in severe disrepair. As an adolescent, Doris had participated in seances and Ouija board sessions. Her sons later reported the family had always experienced some minor level of psychokinetic activity, even before moving to Culver City. This detail would become important later when analyzing the case. In August 1974, Doris moved from Santa Monica to the small house at 11,547 Braddock Drive in Culver City. Soon after moving in, an elderly Hispanic woman knocked on her door and delivered a chilling warning. According to journals kept by witnesses, the woman said, "You need to get out. I used to live here in this old house back when it was just a farm and I was a little girl. There is something very evil here. This place is haunted and you need to get out." Doris questioned her further, but the woman said no more and left. The warning would prove prophetic. Shortly after moving in, Doris began experiencing terrifying phenomena. She claimed she was being physically and sexually assaulted by 3 semi-transparent entities. 2 smaller beings would hold her down while a larger, taller one would rape her. The attacks left visible bruises on her body, particularly on her inner thighs. Her children also experienced encounters. Entities bumped into them in hallways and even slapped them. The children saw these beings so frequently they nicknamed one of them Mr. Husit. More benign manifestations included luminous, transparent human shapes moving through the house, and typical poltergeist activity, objects moving on their own, doors slamming, cold spots. Doris confided in a friend about what was happening, and by chance, that friend overheard Barry Taff and Kerry Gaynor discussing paranormal investigations in a bookstore. The friend told them about Doris's situation, and the investigators agreed to visit. On August 22, 1974, Barry Taff and Kerry Gaynor arrived at the Braddock Drive home. Taff was working in the parapsychology lab run by Thelma Moss at UCLA. They conducted a preliminary interview of SiR.ReapeR's paranormal claims, which revealed her history of physical and substance abuse, along with her traumatic childhood. They also noted the house was condemned and in severe disrepair. They were skeptical, very skeptical. Ghost apparitions are hard to prove scientifically. Ghostly rape seemed even harder to believe. But then they saw the bruises. Doris had distinct marks on her inner thighs and all over her body. People outside the family corroborated her story, testifying they had also seen apparitions. The investigators decided to conduct a full investigation. What happened next would be documented over 10 weeks of repeated visits. The moment Taff and Gaynor entered the house on that hot August day, they noticed two strange things. First, the house smelled of rotting flesh, a putrid, overwhelming odor with no apparent source. Second, Doris's bedroom was ice cold, despite it being summer in Southern California and the rest of the house being stifling. The house had no air conditioning. The temperature difference was impossible to explain. During their first visit, they witnessed what Taff called poltergeist activity. A kitchen cupboard suddenly slammed open, and a frying pan flew out, as if thrown by invisible hands, heading straight toward the investigators. Taff and Gaynor tore the cabinet apart, suspicious of tricks or mechanisms. They found nothing that could explain what happened. This was only the first of many projectiles they would witness over the coming weeks. The investigators brought in additional witnesses, other people from the UCLA parapsychology lab, cameras, recording equipment. They wanted to document everything. During subsequent visits, they witnessed objects falling from shelves by themselves, strange lights, bad odors, and cold zones throughout the house. But the most dramatic phenomena centered around Doris herself. The researchers witnessed bright greenish-yellow balls of light, they called corpuscular balls of light, flying around Doris's bedroom. These orbs appeared to grow or fade in intensity based on their questions. They moved and varied in size. The investigators noted the lights seemed to follow Doris. They appeared when she was present and disappeared when she left. Even more disturbing, when Doris's oldest son put on records by Black Sabbath or Uriah Heep, particularly songs about devil worship, the paranormal activity intensified dramatically. Baseball cards flew around the room. The light orbs increased in number and brightness. Then came the most shocking moment of the investigation. During one session, investigators asked Doris to provoke the spirits. She did, and witnesses watched in horror as a green mist began forming in the room. The mist coalesced into the shape of a muscular male torso, a semi-transparent upper body with defined muscles floating in mid-air. Multiple witnesses saw this apparition. Photographers attempted to capture it on film. The photographic evidence they produced shows an arc of light floating above Doris with no bends, even though behind it we can see the room's corner where the light should have bent. The arc appears to float in three-dimensional space. Recording cameras failed repeatedly during key moments, a common claim in paranormal investigations, but frustrating for documentation. They only managed to capture the image of what appears to be an arc of light floating in the middle of the room. Taff and Gaynor conducted this investigation over 10 weeks. They were joined by an acquaintance of Bither's who claimed she could communicate with spirits, as well as a large number of people from the UCLA lab. The researchers indicated that the occurrences decreased over the course of their visits, typical of poltergeist cases, which often lose intensity when under observation or when the emotional state of those involved changes. The investigators did not look into the spectral rape allegation as thoroughly as other aspects, because the alleged violence preceded their involvement. Taff himself has stated he believes such incidents did not occur, that the sexual assaults were not real supernatural events, but rather psychological manifestations or false claims related to Doris's trauma history. Based on Bither's story, his own observations, and the photographs, Taff concluded paranormal phenomena must have been involved. He called the case a haunting, though he has been careful to distinguish between what he personally witnessed, poltergeist activity, lights, temperature anomalies, versus what Doris claimed sexual assault by entities. At the end of the investigation, researchers recommended that Doris move because of how bad the situation had become. Bither and her family took the advice and moved to Texas, maintaining contact with the researchers. But disturbingly, according to some accounts, the attacks did not disappear. The phenomena seemed to follow Doris, which suggested to investigators that she, not the house, was the source of the energy. Years later, while living in San Bernardino, Doris made a shocking claim. She said she was pregnant with the entity's child. This claim was met with skepticism, even by those who believed in the paranormal aspects of her case. Eventually, Doris Bither disappeared from public view, shying away from the limelight gained by the release of the book and film about her experiences. She died in 1999 at age 58 of cardiopulmonary failure, multiple organ failure with no medically determined cause. Some of her children have confirmed in recent times that everything happened as described, adding credibility to the case. The skeptical explanation is straightforward. Doris Bither was a deeply traumatized woman with a history of abuse, alcoholism, and emotional problems. She had participated in occult activities as a teenager. She was living in extreme stress with 4 children in a condemned house. Skeptics argue she either fabricated the sexual assault claims or genuinely believed them due to psychological trauma, possibly reliving past abuse through false memories or delusions. The poltergeist activity, skeptics suggest, could have been caused by Doris and her teenage sons through conscious or unconscious trickery, throwing objects when no one was looking, creating the appearance of paranormal activity. The bruises could have been self-inflicted or from other sources. The photographs of light arcs could be camera artifacts or deliberately created effects. Many have accused the investigators of confirmation bias and failing to produce verifiable evidence, but the believers point to multiple credible witnesses, UCLA researchers, lab staff, outside observers, all reporting the same phenomena. The frying pan incident happened in front of skeptical investigators who immediately searched for explanations and found none. The temperature anomalies and smell of rotting flesh were documented by multiple people. The photographs, while not definitive proof, show something unusual, and Taff and Gaynor, who investigated 4,800 cases over their careers and debunked most of them as conventional phenomena, maintained that this case was different. Barry Taff, even more than 40 years after the events, is hesitant to draw conclusions. He has suggested that at least some poltergeist activity was psychokinetic, possibly coming from Doris Bither herself and perhaps her teenage sons. In other words, Doris's traumatized psyche may have been unconsciously manifesting physical phenomena. She wasn't faking it, but it wasn't demons either. It was her own mind creating real physical effects through psychokinesis. This theory would explain why the activity followed Doris when she moved, why it intensified during emotional moments, and why it eventually decreased. It also explains the correlation with her sons. Music teenagers going through puberty are often at the center of poltergeist cases, as their emotional and hormonal changes may generate psychokinetic energy. Carrie Gaynor, now a hypnotherapist, whose clients include actors Martin Sheen and Aaron Eckhart, appeared on Netflix's John Mulaney Presents, Everybody's in LA this year, and recalled the encounters. Memories of the Bither case have stayed with Gaynor throughout the years. He came to feel that it was Doris who was the source of the energy, not the house. Frank D. Felita's 1978 novel The Entity was inspired by the case. In 1982, it became a film starring Barbara Hershey, though the movie took significant dramatic liberties. The film portrays the entity as a malevolent supernatural force and includes dramatic special effects sequences showing the attacks. While the movie brought attention to the case, it sensationalized events and departed from the actual investigation. Today, the little yellow house still stands at 11,547 Braddock Drive in Culver City. New residents have reported no paranormal activity, supporting the theory that whatever haunted the house left with Doris, or more accurately, was created by Doris and couldn't exist without her. The Doris Bither case remains one of the most bizarre and disturbing personal ghost stories in paranormal history. Was she genuinely attacked by entities? Was she manifesting poltergeist activity through unconscious psychokinesis? Or was it elaborate fraud? We may never know with certainty. What we can say is that Doris Bither was a deeply troubled woman who lived a traumatic life and died young under mysterious circumstances. Whether her torment was supernatural or psychological, it was real to her. So what do you think? Was Doris Bither attacked by entities? Or did her traumatized mind create the phenomena through psychokinesis? And if investigators witnessed real paranormal activity, why couldn't they capture better evidence? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most controversial paranormal cases ever, hit that like button, subscribe for more unexplained mysteries, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.